Welcome back, everybody, to the Meeple Marathon, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different here. We're going to be playing through Forbidden Island on the iOS app. So here you can see I am simply just selecting the map configuration, and I did a random selection of the standard gameplay, and it gave me the navigator and the engineer. So, for those of you not familiar with Forbidden Island, you essentially get 3 actions every turn, and on that action you can move from one tile to the next, moving orthogonally, or you can what's called shore up the tile. So you can see there's certain tiles there kind of in the middle, and now some are becoming waterlogged as well. They're sinking. I think of this as like the Atlantis island, and it's slowly sinking into the ocean. So if you are either adjacent to or on a island tile that is sinking, you can what's called shore it up. And that means you can, in the real game, you would flip it over to its colorful side, away off of its blue side. While you are keeping the island from sinking, you are attempting to retrieve 4 treasures. And now these 4 treasures can be located within 8 specific tiles that are randomly spread throughout the board here. So you can see that my engineer right now is actually able to, just then I was able to shore up 2 tiles for 1 action. That's the engineer's special ability. Every character has a special ability, and the engineer's is that they can, for 1 action, shore up 2 tiles, as long as they don't move. The navigator, however, their special ability is that they can move another player's pawn up to 2 spaces away for a single action, which is a really nice economy of scale if you think about it, because normally to just move your own pawn 1 space in any direction costs you 1 action. So the navigator is really handy at getting people in position before their turn even starts. So you can see, if you notice the map here, and we'll talk about that Waters Rise card in just a second. If you see the map here, there are 2 tiles. For example, up here just to the right of the engineer meeple, there's 2 tiles with that flame symbol on them. Those are the 2 areas that you could retrieve that flame treasure from. Now, the engineer has collected 4 treasure cards that all have that flame symbol on them. So you can see that the engineer is going to move on to that tile, turn in those 4 cards, and they've now collected the flame treasure, one of the 4 treasures. And you can also notice that the treasure was removed from both of those tiles, because you can only get a specific treasure 1 time. So let's talk quickly about these Water Rise cards we keep seeing. Mixed within the treasure deck, and you have to draw 2 cards every turn, these 3 Water Rise cards. Every time a Water Rise card is drawn, it not only pushes up the total number of island cards that are going to be drawn, that in turn sink those island tiles during the flood phase, but it also is going to take all of the island tile cards in the flood deck that have been drawn already, shuffle them up, and places them back on top of the deck. You may see that this is very familiar and reminiscent of Pandemic. Well, Matt Leacock is the designer of Forbidden Island, and he was the designer of Pandemic. So it works very similar, that the more often you see those Water Rise cards, the more likely you are for tiles to get doubled up on. And so anytime a tile is drawn from the flood deck and is already in the blue, is already partially flooded, it completely disappears. So now you can see there are 2 island tiles in the middle of my island that have completely disappeared. Those are just water now. I cannot enter those spaces now, and if for some reason I cannot take a direct orthogonal path around the water, then I'm kind of stuck. There is one character whose special power, the scuba diver, I believe his name is, who can swim through the water tiles, but otherwise everybody else has to go around them. Now you'll notice that the navigator does, however, have one card up in his hand that is a helicopter card. That helicopter card is one of the ways you can get around being stuck on one side of the island and not being able to swim to the other side. A helicopter card actually allows you to be picked up by a helicopter and transported to any tile on the map. And if you are sharing a tile with someone, it can pick all of you up and move all of you. You are going to need a helicopter card to get off the island and win the game. The objective of the game, as I stated before, is to collect one of each of the 4 treasures on the island and then get to the space that is in the lower right hand corner that has the helipad on it. It's called Fool's Landing. So we need to collect the 4 treasures, get to the Fool's Landing, and have a helicopter card to play in order to win the game, all the while the island is slowly sinking on us. And try as you might, you could run around and literally do nothing but try and shore up tiles. With the water rise cards like you're seeing now, stacking the cards that have just been drawn back on top of the deck, it's inevitable that this island is going to sink. But that is part of the beauty of this game, is that no matter how well you play, there is always the tension of the island sinking around you. So there is a little bit of luck involved with you drawing the cards. But you can pass cards from one player to another if you are sharing a space as an action. And obviously you can shore up tiles. So, you know, what you are seeing here is essentially now I have, I'm getting ready to retrieve my third, the purple kind of broken globe. There we go, 3rd treasure. So now all I need left is the blue chalice. So for the remainder of the game, my focus at this point is going to be making sure I have a path to one of the blue chalice cards. You can see there happens to be one right next to the helipad, and there's also the tidal palace there that I just shored up using a sandbags card. A sandbags card is similar to the helicopter card. It's a non-treasure card that you can draw into. It allows you to shore up any tile on the map. You don't have to be adjacent to it. I also failed to point out that the helicopter card and which I just used, and the sandbags tile can be used. They're free actions. They are not actions that use up one of your 3 on your turn. So at this point, my navigator is basically going to be attempting to keep the tidal palace active, and my engineer is also going to be doing that. Right now my engineer has 2 of the chalice cards and my navigator has 1, so at some point here we're going to be probably swapping some cards. But all the while the island is continuing to sink, and at the very beginning of the game, we only were drawing 2 flood cards at a time, but you can see as more and more of those water rise cards have come out, that dial below the flood deck has continued to go from left to right to increase. It's currently at 3, which means we draw 3 flood cards at the end of every turn. Pretty soon here though, and it's either the next water rises card or the one after that, it's going to jump up to 4. And then after a couple more water rise cards, it's going to jump all the way up to 5, meaning that it's almost, it is impossible to stay ahead and keep everything shored up. Also, anytime, so let's see where the dial goes to. Are we drawing 4 now? Nope, we're still only drawing 3. Another thing to consider is that anytime a tile does sink completely into the ocean, that tile's flood card is removed and put back in the box. So that means there's less cards to draw out of that flood deck. So again, increasing the likelihood that the tiles around you are going to flood. Now, disaster has just struck. We just lost literally in 2 turns because of the water rise cards. That second tile that not only gave us the stepping stone to Fool's Landing, but it also was the other tile with the blue chalice treasure on it. So now we are definitely going to have to keep the Tidal Palace alive, and I'm going to have to figure out a way to get over to Fool's Landing, because that tile can sink like any other tile. And so that's going to be kind of the stress that I'm dealing with here while I continue to try and figure out where that fourth blue chalice card is in the deck. Now, while we are going about this is a great time, because I'm kind of just going to be going through the motions here in the game, to talk about why I love this app over the physical game. The reason being is that the app is not only beautiful, it perfectly replicates the artwork and the tiles. It fits very nicely on an iPad. The game is not huge in person, so you don't feel like it's shrunk down or anything like that. You don't feel like you're missing anything with the app. But what it does do is shuffle the cards automatically, and the animations and the handling of the flood deck is very nice on the app. It does it automatically. You just click on the flood deck at the end of your turn, because you have drawn your treasure cards, and it's going to not only draw the card for you, it's going to find the tile, which can sometimes take you a second looking around the board. Ooh, where's that tile? And then you got to flip it over, and then you got to go back to the deck, and then anytime a tile floods into the ocean, you got to remove that card. It's not super fiddly. Forbidden Island I would not consider a fiddly game, but the app completely takes away any small amount of fiddliness that the actual physical game might contain. So really, I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything by playing the app versus the physical game. In fact, the fact that setup and teardown time is absolutely 0 means that I can knock out several games of Forbidden Island just sitting on the couch while the kids are watching TV or something like that. I can play it anywhere. It's travel worthy as long as I have my iPad, and just all these beautiful animations just add to your experience. So again, that's why I feel like Forbidden Island, the iOS app, and I'm not sure if this is available on Steam, but I'm pretty sure it's available on Android. This is actually an older app. It's close to a decade old now, but it holds up and works really nicely. You can see that the flood meter now is up to 4, so we're drawing 4 cards out of, was there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 4 out of 12, so a third of the deck, and it's about to get worse, gets drawn every single round. And so inevitably this island is sinking. The tension is always there, but you never completely feel like you are out of it. I have lost games of Forbidden Island, but generally, as long as I'm playing sensibly, I'm able to squeak out a victory. It's probably 75% of the time I can win a game of Forbidden Island. But that's nice, because it's not so easy that you're always winning, but it's not so hard that, you're failing 50% or more of the time. So again, this is Forbidden Island on iOS. It's not expensive. It's like $5 to download. If you can find it on sale, even better. But in my opinion, this is far more worth your money for $5 than, say, an actual copy of the game, which can run you roughly $20 to $30. I can't remember how much the actual game was, the physical copy of the game was, but that's roughly about where it is. So a quarter of the cost, you can get the same experience and actually be able to play it a lot more, and you're not missing out on anything. One other thing that the app offers that the base game does not offer, I'm guessing that these came out in some form or fashion from the developer, because they're not hard to emulate, but the app and there are additional purchases, in-app purchases, which are not always fun, but I honestly don't know how much they are, because I enjoy the 2 basic maps that are provided. They offer different map configurations. I know one of them, for example, is, I think it's called like the Bridge of Doom, which basically took takes two big squares, but then puts a single row of tiles in between. So, you know, you definitely either have to keep that single row intact in order to get to the other tiles, the two sides of the bridge, or you're going to be using a helicopter often. So yeah, I don't really know what else I could say about this app. You can see here that I now have my 4th Chalice card and a helicopter card, so I'm going to be able to get both of us to Fool's Landing, and then essentially, barring just pure disaster from the draw deck, we should be able to survive. I've got a sandbag card that we can throw at Fool's Landing if need be. But we should be good to go. We're just going to have to survive long enough to draw then a second helicopter card. So here we are. The navigator really doesn't have much to do, but that's fine. So we're just going to pass on his turn. And there is the helicopter card. Perfect. So we don't need the lion statue figure anymore. Here the island is going to disappear very quickly. Ooh, Fool's Landing sinks. And here we go. This should be it. Should be able to grab that 4th treasure. It's now going to tell me get to Fool's Landing. I'm going to sandbag up Fool's Landing just because I don't want to get my feet wet. This is a fun little animation that's added into the game anytime you're on a tile with another player and you use the helicopter card, just so that, you know, you don't have to ride with the other player. But there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this playthrough. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you with the next video.